Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the DKM podcast. First and foremost, I want to make a sincere apology for the lack of episode last week. Things were really busy for us. Mother's Day, other personal matters came up, and it took up a lot of our time, and we just couldn't get around to accumulating a schedule or a time to record. But don't worry, this episode will definitely be worth it because, I got the boys again. We got Marcos, me, and Kenny here to entertain you guys.
Boys.
How are you guys doing today? Yes, the boys. The boys. I got to get around to watching the show too on Amazon.
I've never seen it.
I'm doing good.
I've heard of it.
I'm doing good.
That's good, Kenny. You're back. You're back to visit us.
Yeah.
And you're staying. Hopefully?
Yeah, I was out in Nebraska, people. So, yeah. Now I'm home.
Well,
back at home.
That's good. That's good. There's no place like home. How are you doing, Marcos?
I just finished watching Invincible, and then they recommended me The Boys to watch, but I'm not gonna do that. At least not right now.
I want to give the boys a watch. I've heard of the comic a long time ago when I was like before the show was even a thing. I was picking up a coworker and he was telling me about the comic. I think it was like a part of a Humble Bundle or something. It sounds kind of interesting. I think Amazon right now just has a hard on for like worst case scenario superhero material.
Yeah.
So they're definitely banking on that with now Invincible. And Invincible was really really good. I'm gonna try our best to not get spoiler heavy. But I want to say that the show this sets up the main mystery fairly upfront, and as the audience, you already know the answer. But it was so interesting to see like how they determine it, because not only just like how do we find out who the bad guy is, but how do we stop it is what makes it so much more interesting. And I definitely recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime Video. You more than likely have Amazon Prime already. Definitely recommend it. I think, in fact, that this might be the first Amazon Prime content I ever watched. Well, Amazon Prime exclusive content.
With the Invincible? Okay.
Yeah, because like I never seen The Boys. I know that they made that new Tom Clancy movie with Michael B. Jordan. I know that did Amazon also make Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
Okay, then that's like
That was
another
such a
one that I know
good
of.
show, dude.
But yeah, I never watched that one either. But yeah, so basically speaking, like the only thing I've ever watched on Amazon Prime Video, ironically, is actually Texas Chainsaw Massacre. One morning I couldn't sleep and I was just laying in bed and they had like this 40th anniversary 4K transfer of it, and I watched it for the first time, and man, that movie's pretty good. Like I very much enjoyed the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I never really saw that movie.
It's nice.
You never seen it? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a bit of a slow burn, but it actually has that sort of like appeal. You never heard of American Movie, right?
American movie? No.
It was like this like comedy slash documentary movie about these two guys like trying to make a film, and it's very endearing because like there's a line that one of the guys says that if you ever been into like I don't know if you guys ever did like filmmaking in school and stuff like that. There's always that moment where like you have a scene in mind that you want to shoot, but you don't probably have the budget or the actors or the props and things like that.
Right.
But these two guys, even with a minuscule shoestring budget, they're so determined to make this movie and this one particular scene that the guy says like, listen, nobody goes to a movie theater and then later sees a black screen with white text that says, sorry, we couldn't film the scene because we didn't have it in the budget anymore. And that's pretty endearing. Like, even though they know that they can't film the scene exactly how they want to because of their shoestring budget, they still did what they could with what they had.
Right. Right.
And in the movie, they brought up this fact that like they described that the way how Texas Chainsaw Massacre was filmed, because it was a pretty much an indie film at the time. I think like the mass budget of the film was less than $1 million. I think it was like 400,000, and he described it the way how the film was like shot and everything was more filmed like a documentary, which is pretty true, because when you get to like the finale with the poor girl stuck with in the Leatherface household and shit, like you're just like, fucking hell, dude, like please just kill the girl or something, because this is horrible this poor girl is going through.
And yet you couldn't sleep one night and you decided to watch this, which is
Oh no, I slept like
you what?
Well, no, I slept like a baby afterwards, because then the Nintendo Direct came out and my Google baby brain kicked in, so I was
There
sleeping
you
like a
go.
baby.
brain.
I had my thumb in my and everything. I was like, that was my morning. That was my tweet for the morning. I was like, so how was my morning? I watched the Nintendo Direct and I saw Leatherface. That's it.
I've never had that issue with watching horror movies at night or right before going to sleep. Like even when I was a kid, it's never haunted me. It's never been
It's only happened to me
with
once,
what.
and it was because it was the time I accidentally channel surfed and I saw the finale of Child's Play, the Chucky movie.
Mm.
Now, at the time, I was just a kid. I was channel surfing, and I always had a fear of like creepy toys. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I never saw the beginning of the film. I've only saw the tail end of the finale
Right.
where Chucky gets burnt and he's like crawling through the vents and shit, and he's just going to try to kill the mom and the kid, and that frightened the fuck out of me. Like that scared the living shit out of me. Like I remember when kids would bring a Chucky doll to school and that would freak me the fuck out. And for years I thought like, oh my god, the entire movie of Child's Play is like this. So eventually as a teenager I went and watched the original. I thought, wow, this is a fucking joke.
Yeah. How old were you when you watched when this afflicted you?
I was barely I was like maybe like in the second or third grade.
Mhm.
Oh, there you go.
I the only time I ever got scared of a scary movie was like The Grudge, and I'm not even sure if it was a Grudge because
Yeah.
it was like the scene that really messed me up was there was like this white ball that goes down the stairs, and then once it hits the bottom, somebody picks it up, and it's just covered in roaches. And I mean, I was a kid. I don't know what movie it was. I'm not sure if it was a Grudge or not. But there was also this scene where there's this lady in like a safe room, like with like the straitjacket on, but she had like scars of making it look like a smile on her face. I don't know exactly what movie it was, but maybe one of our viewers can comment down and let me know if they know.
Oh, actually, I forgot to mention. If you are actually listening to this episode, we do actually have some good news for you guys. We have officially have made a DKM podcast Discord server because we want to engage the community and we want to build on the community. In the description below on the YouTube channel or on wherever you're listening on this, we do have links available to join the official DKM podcast, or you could, join your like-minded DKM podcast fan, and you could also engage in like even topic suggestion, guest suggestion channels, and things like that. So definitely join this Discord server if you want to, because we definitely would appreciate your company. So I forgot to mention that, but yeah, to go back to the topic of horror movies, I didn't see a lot of horror movies. I wasn't much of a horror movie, like I wouldn't go out of my way
I'm
to
a
watch horror
fanatic
movies.
for horror movies.
I guess like my only horror films that like I could say my favorite horror movie of all time is the Shining. I love The Shining, like
Yeah,
not just
Shining's
only
pretty
as a
good.
horror aspect, but I just like the filming aspect. Like that movie is so fun to just break down like how every shot was made and like how inconsistent and convoluted it was. Like I remember the first time when Jack Nicholson's character went to go see the owner of the hotel's office, that flipped me the fuck out because that interior design does not make any goddamn sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going down a hallway, they turn left, then they turn right again, and then there's an office that there's a window, but it doesn't make any sense because if the office is in that part of the building, there shouldn't be a backyard at that point, so you can't see what the fuck is going on. And there's just a lot of shit like that in that film that always makes me want to be like, man, what the fuck is going on? I'm not even getting all of that conspiracy crap about like, oh, Stanley Kubrick faked the film, the moon landing and things like that. I just enjoy
I never liked The Shining
how
too
the-
much. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but when I watched it back, my first time ever watching was in high school. This chick I knew at the time, she was really into it. She really, really liked all these classic 80s and 90s films, and I'm like, yeah, I've never watched this one and this one and this one, and we watched The Shining, and everything's cool and all. I just didn't quite get the idea of it. It is a work of art. I will say that I can appreciate the movie as a piece of art. Small little details, minute details when it comes to like throwing you off on your game. When it comes to artwork, when it comes to the camera positioning,
Implications.
everything. It was great. But when it came to narrative, I wasn't too sure about it. Granted, I only watched it once, and granted, I was sort of distracted as well. But even when I rewatched it after the first time, I was like, yeah, I mean,
I think what I think what it is like. Did you have any like expectations going into it?
I was just
Like,
told
did
it's
you
a
have-
great film. It's one of the
Okay.
classics.
All right, no, because the reason Because the reason why I say that, because like a lot of people get this idea because they're so used to seeing the clips of Jack saying like "Here's Johnny" and things like that. They get this idea that the film is primarily a slasher film when it really isn't. And
No, no. All I know was that meme, but I didn't expect like a murder case. All I expected was just a typical horror film. That's really it. I didn't expect like this person to be a serial killer, but and it turned out to be
no,
the
no, no, I'm
case.
not. No, I'm not saying you. I'm talking about like just in general, because like when people like, because I watched The Shining in high school, and a lot of people knew of the clip of Jack Nicholson's
Right.
character, saying like, "Here's Johnny," so they go into it thinking it's a slasher film, but it's really not. It's a very slow burning film about paranoia, fear, ghosts, what is real or not, and it's a lot of little details like that. That's why I like The Shining more on repeated viewings. You get to see like all the little details about it that make me appreciate the film a lot more.
Right.
Right.
I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the jump scares is literally just a title card that just says Tuesday. Like, we all made fun of it, but it makes sense. Like, it was kind of parodying it.
One thing I
But
do
yeah, I
like
love The
about
Shining.
movies is when they really show realistic aspects of certain events and whatnot. Like if it makes it like super clear, like hey, this is what this is exactly what a serial killer would look like. How he would act. One of these films that I liked a lot was No Country for Old Men, because like that guy was definitely a psychopath. The
Yeah.
dude in this the trying to portray in this movie was excellent, excellent. The ones that you don't think of when it comes to psychotic villains or psychotic killers, realistically speaking, is like, what's this dude's name in the Silence of the Lambs?
Buffalo Bill.
Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah.
you don't expect him to be an actual representation of a psychotic killer, who basically doesn't have any remorse or anything. He's more of a very different kind of killer. But when it comes to just regular I'm an idiot right.
Psychopathic killer.
Psychopathic killers, serial killers. No Country for Old Men, Old Men really does a great job at that. One thing that I just really enjoy in movies. Period is just audio and just narratives overall. I think it was last week. Yeah, last week I watched the Unholy. I watched Unholy on in theaters, which is nice going back to theaters. And one thing that I liked about it a lot was it kept you on your toes when on certain aspects, like hey, what's actually going on here. It wasn't that big of a suspense, but it was nice. A little bit of jump scares here and there, but they weren't that bad. One thing I did enjoy about the movie was how nice the music was. One thing I really like about horror films is that if they use that same repetitive dead tone, freaking just
Stinger noise.
it's just like I get it, but it's like to me it's just whatever. But this music had pretty decent music, and this movie had pretty decent music, and I enjoyed it. I honestly enjoyed it. It was enjoyable, but when it comes to horror films, I like I it's more like a mystery game to me. Like, okay, is this gonna happen or is that gonna happen? I end up being wrong most of the times, but it was fun.
I get you. I just prefer more of a slower burn, like not the stinger, like thriller kind of horror. I like that more of a like sense of dread and fear.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, what could happen? What's going on? Not the constant like stinger shit. Like I remember, like my sister wanted to go watch the movie Mama,
Hmm.
and at first I was like, I don't want to watch it. It looks really lame. I'm gonna be annoyed. I got to be constantly expecting jump scares. But by like the middle point of the film, I could predict every jump scare that was gonna happen,
Basically.
and like the movie was very underwhelming. Like I was more like, man, I was expecting to get annoyed, but now I'm just like very very underwhelmed by the film.
Yeah, I understand. Speaking about horror, though, have you guys played Resident Evil Village?
No, I have not played the Mommy Milker Simulator yet. I'm still waiting. I should get around to it though.
God, you and your fetishes.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
I haven't
Every
played Resident Evil game at all. Period.
uh, if you're gonna start with 7, and then I mean, I know other people. I haven't played any of the other ones, so
Mhm.
off personal
I
preference.
most people will tell you.
Yeah,
Most people tell you start with 4.
yeah. Start with 4 because 4 was fast paced and all that. But um, For my personal
I think it
preference,
depends
I
on what
like
you're.
the first-person shooters, so 7 was great for me. I beat 7. 7 was very slow and methodical, and now 8 is just more action-orientated, but still kind of like in the works of feeling kind of like 7.
Well, that's because like Capcom has said that they're trying to push more that 8 isn't as like shit pants inducing
But that's what
horror.
I
Like it's more.
loved.
That's yeah. I think it's so funny though because Capcom essentially went full circle. We went, isometric, um, awkward tank controls, Resident Evil games that like use gimped controls and limited ammo and space and
Yeah.
shit like that. To sense of panic and survival and things like that. Then the series rebranded itself when Resident Evil 4 while still retrieving its kind of like horror elements, especially in the village and shit like that. But then later by the time you get to the island, you're just hearing fucking bongos playing in the background while Leon is capping fucking zombies in the head while there's wielding stun batons and shit. And then Resident Evil 5 happened, which that was a bit of a yikes moment at the time, at the political climate at the time. I don't know if you guys remember the old fashioned Xbox 360s protest that people did in Halo 3 where they would go to Halo 3 lobbies and say down with Resident Evil, down with Capcom,
No.
because oh no, they used
No.
you don't remember that?
No.
What the heck?
Yeah, Resident Evil 5 came out at a fairly politically awkward climate change. We got this like Japanese developed team that are making a game based in Africa that, it's a little bit quirky.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
like,
little
no, don't worry,
stretched.
guys. We're trying not to be that, a little bit off kiltered, but don't worry. We gave Shiva a pretty nice, tribal bikini and shit like that. But don't worry, we're quirky Japanese Capcom. This is completely fine. But yeah, no, there was a big stink about it back then. But this was back then. Everyone wanted to make a stink about anything.
Never heard of it. What the heck? That's so funny.
Yeah, it was a thing because they just thought it was kind of fucked up that the evil pharmaceutical company is putting alien virus bullshit in Central Africa, so that was considered like very controversial at the time. But anyways, going off my tangent, so Resident Evil 5 happened, and then it focused a little bit more on action with co-op, and then Resident Evil 6 happened, and then they just threw it way off the fucking rails, and I'm well aware of the fact that like Resident Evil 2 and 3 had its like oh shit crazy moments, but as far as like game design goes, like Resident Evil 6 was just like jumping the shark while doing a fucking Flamingo 900 360 flip over the fucking helicopter in Tampa and Tony Hawk Underground, saying
All I can say is
I think it was in Hawaii. It wasn't in Tampa, wasn't it?
No, you're right. It was in Hawaii. You're right. It was in Hawaii.
Resident Evil 7 is a definitely a masterpiece that needs to be played.
Yeah, so then later they went back to do Resident Evil 7 because they're like, well, fuck it, we got to go back to how it was before. We made this new RE engine. We're going to go ahead and get back into the spooks territory while we're also remaking Resident Evil 2 and 3, which is still trying to... I think what Capcom is doing is they're trying to have like now it's 2 focus visions for Resident Evil. There's the third-person action survival, and then there's the first-person survival action. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So... It's just kind of funny that we went completely full circle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy they finally came out with like a first-person shooter for the franchise because they had like all these other Resident Evil games that were third-person. Don't get me wrong, I like my third-person games, but they never looked interesting to me. Not so much so as they do now. Because
Even
you can relate you can relate more when you're playing first person as in a horror game because it's like you're pretty much looking through the eyes of the person that you're playing as, and like you're experiencing
you're not, like, looking as the cameraman.
Yeah, you're
not the cameraman
exactly
watching the other guy getting fucked.
You're not the floaty boy from Mario 64.
The Lakitu.
Yeah.
That was such a genius way to incorporate like third-person camera controls, which is funny. Apparently, Nintendo didn't have the rights or the legal jargon to basically say that we could do that because Sega apparently trademarked it or something. So they just said,
"What third person?"
Yeah. There was some like legal thing or like because whenever this is why like whenever game studios try to like patent a thing, like that's why when like PUBG was trying to patent the battle royale genre, that was like a bad idea essentially. Apparently Nintendo found out that Right. Sega had a patent for that third person camera, but Nintendo just said, fuck it, let's see if they don't sue us, and then they never did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was also that
Too bad that
lawsuit
Sonic
for.
Adventure still had bad third camera controls, am I right?
Wait, what?
No, I was just making a joke that the Adventure games don't have the best camera.
Oh.
No.
Especially Adventure 1.
No, they don't. One thing though about Resident Evil that at least I can appreciate, especially with those new ones, that given with all the memes, everyone's really getting onto this game. Like,
Oh yeah, dude, the game's great.
And getting off, if you know what I'm
Oh,
saying.
I know what you're saying, man.
You know what I'm saying, am I right? Getting off.
Yeah,
Coomer.
Danny, you're the one that agrees with everybody else that's getting off with that game.
Yeah. So, the fuck?
I think Marcos and I are over here as the two level-headed people.
look, I don't care about
Yeah,
your fetishes.
losers.
I
Yep.
too would like a tall woman to stomp on my
See?
face. But here's the thing, though. I don't live in your anime world. I want real life women to stomp on my face because I'm a freak like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's very true. Marcos and me are men of culture.
Wait, no, you stay with your digital media. I'll deal with real life women.
What makes you think that I wouldn't go up to a tall woman and be like, "Hey,
Hey,
you
Amazonas.
want to be my mommy?"
For
Hey
the
there.
for the small
Hey there,
fact
I'm
that you
Google-
said they had
Hey there, I'm a
cooties.
baby. Google Gaga, baby. You want to carry me? I want uppies. Give me the uppies.
For
Oh,
the simple
God.
fact that you said they had cooties and you didn't
All right,
like
guys.
them.
I retire from DKM podcast. I'll see you guys.
I can respect it.
Never.
I can respect it.
Yeah, respectable. Respectable. Then we shoot up in the viewership.
Wait a minute.
Oh, dude,
That's not cool.
I'd create every.
And then
team.
Kenny's gonna be like, "I want my fucking check. You guys kicked me out of the band knowing this."
It was all part of the plan.
Of course, of course. Anyways, Marcus, what were you saying?
I just think that the internet, much like with Among Us, how the game was a
Among
couple
Us?
years old and it got popular just because of a few people, and then it basically was a domino effect of sorts. Much like with Resident Evil, the games have always been loved since its inception, even more so when great games came out like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, and then the remix came out. People enjoyed the game very well, especially nowadays, especially since we're all connected through the internet. It's much more easier to find out information about things. So seeing that there's a lot more memes with this new Resident Evil game, I can see why a lot of people who haven't been into the Resident Evil genre or just haven't played it at all are starting to get into it, mainly because they see, hey, like, it's getting a pretty good rep and not really negative press on it because, well, who really has seen any negative press except that one lawsuit that I think Kenny mentioned about monster designs that were being, it looked like they were copyrighted.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked into it a little bit because I wanted to be more specific. Apparently, there is a Frankenstein-esque movie that came out a couple years back.
2013.
Yeah,
and
I
a
was
lot
gonna
of
bring
the
it up.
Enemy design. Oh, okay. If you want to go ahead and do it, because it sounds like you did more of the research of it. I've only seen a handful of comparisons. If you want to go into more detail,
I
go for it.
mean, I've seen the screenshots straight to the T. Like, there's literally one scene in the movie that's, if you picked it up and you dropped it in the game, they're spitting image of each other. I mean, to the T.
I was more focusing on more like the character designs, but yeah, I know.
Oh
what
no,
you
no,
mean,
I'm
like, the
talking
fucking
about
propeller
like
head.
there's literally level design that's based around the movie, and this is the reason why they're getting a lot of like flack for it now. Even more is because of that.
I put an article.
Yeah,
I put an article in the host only chat. It's mainly when it comes to the actual villains, the actual monsters that they copied from the movie. That's what this article's covering. Specifically, I think there's just 4 of them.
I could see the propeller head one can be a little bit too much. The other ones, I'm not so sure. Like this guy right here, with the 2 blades on, well, the 2 drills on the side. I don't know. That's a little bit reaching right there. I guess you could say the headpiece looks kind of similar. But I mean, wasn't these like character designs used in like other stuff? Like the guy with the 1 drill on his arm, like I don't know that I feel like I've seen that design in other in other things before.
Well, show us the receipts and we'll see if we can agree with that. But for the most part, this guy, I'm not sure if they settled out of court and there's NDAs being signed. But all I know is for the most part, like these designs do seem uncanny and very original. And to the most part, it maybe not the second one, but the last one and the third one are similar. Not compared to the first one. The first one was just
The
almost
first
one
one's
to
yeah,
one.
that one. Yeah, that one.
I
They,
could
they
agree
ripped
with
it
that
off.
one. I could agree, yeah, with the little plane propeller thing. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
could kind of see that one, but the other
Yeah,
ones,
it's an airplane
I don't
engine.
know. That's
Yeah, it's an airplane engine, reciprocating engine. There you go. All I know is that one thing that I can at least respect with Resident Evil is just that you don't hear much about this news. It's I'm not. I wonder why. It's something hush that's been like
Yeah, it's
hush hush
really,
kind of.
Yep.
I wonder why. Like usually people make a big deal about, oh look, you copyrighted this stuff, you plagiarized. Like people make a big deal out of this, but I wonder why the I would say the bad press isn't as prevalent, but maybe it's because it depends on the areas of the internet you basically visit. So maybe it's
I
just
don't
a me
know
thing.
because we're three people and all three of us haven't really seen anything about it
Right.
other
I'm
than
reading
like
the
one
article.
YouTube
It doesn't
video.
seem like I'm reading the article. It doesn't seem like that the guy is pursuing any legal trouble, as far as from what I could tell. It looks like that he's just a little bit like,
He's
it's
upset.
cool that they use my. He's like it's kind of cool to see your design used, but at the same time though, it's kind of like, hey, you guys took like my design and then you put in like this really big budgeted game, and it's cool at first, but then it's like, but I made it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of. But the funny thing is, though, Marcus, you bring up the fact that like Resident Evil doesn't get a lot of bad press. There was a time it was like there was a bit of an outcry, especially after Resident Evil 6, which I think it just boiled down to like what people wanted, especially after Resident Evil 6. Like Resident Evil 6 came out, and it was kind of like a little bit controversial because people were like saying like, hey, we don't like this sort of like uber action focused game. Now it's kind of like I said before, we went back full circle because now the franchise is going back to more of its horror roots.
Right. I will say though that one thing I've always enjoyed about horror video games that is sort of not like the ones where you're always running away from a big beast. It's always ones where you can fight back. It does, in my opinion, does pretty good with power scaling. When it comes later in the series, when you can sort of fight back. Obviously at the
Do
beginning.
you prefer if
What?
I'm sorry. Let me ask you this: do you guys prefer if your horror games didn't allow you the option to fight back, or that you just have to choose to fight back?
I like the
Uh,
choice. Personally, I like the choice.
Okay.
One thing,
Like-
it depends on the game you're going into. If you know it's going to be an FPS, if you know it's going to be this or that.
Well,
it's
so
what
like
you're
Resident
going
Evil,
into.
Resident Evil 8, you have the choice whether or not you either want to run through the enemies or if you want to shoot the enemies or melee the enemies and take them on. Like
Right.
it's not better for you, but it's also not worse. I mean,
Yeah,
you'll
but he was
save
just talking
ammo.
about generalized when it comes to horror games.
Yeah, I'm more like comparing like
Yeah.
Resident Evil 8 to like Outlast, for example. Like Outlast, you can't fight back.
I
at all.
know
You only
that. All right,
run
so
and
that
hide.
that game, you're coming into a place as a journalist, so or a documentary or whatever the case is. Like you're coming in with just a camera. Like you look at Ethan Winters from like Resident Evil 7 and 8, and you're like, okay, well this guy came with a gun, so he's probably trained at least some with a weapon, so he can fight. But what I don't understand is with like Outlast, there's wood, there's planks, but do you really want to take on somebody that's absolutely insane and possibly more, or is stronger than you?
And twice your size.
Well, yeah, I know that was Chris Walker. He's
But the
He's
thing
a
is about
tank.
horror games in general, I do like the suspense you get from not being not being able to fight back because it's always the dang I gotta be hiding, I gotta do this and that. It's always a game where you always gotta watch your back because it's a game where it becomes more puzzle like. It doesn't become action like. So when it comes to series in general, I would love to see a game where it's a nice mix of both, where it's very suspenseful at the very beginning, and then later you find out, hey, you can actually fight back, and things become a little bit like it just tips the scales a bit, where it's more of an even
Like
playing
Resident
field.
Evil 7 or Resident Evil 8 and 7.
Yeah,
I mean,
basically.
both games they do that. Like you can literally, like, the beginning of the game when you have barely any ammo, they put you up against, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but they put you up against three enemies, and these enemies, they do a lot of damage depending on the difficulty, obviously. So you have a finite amount of resources that's available to you at the very beginning. You can either choose to fight them with your knife, or you can choose to fight them with your pistol. But that's all you got. If you try to do hand to hand, you're obviously going to get hurt, and you're going to have to use more of your resources. But
One
if you
thing I do
choose,
enjoy about just video games in general, where you obviously have the option to like fight, and then it gives you it puts you in a situation where you lose your ability to fight, and now you have to sneakily move through everything and not get caught. That's one thing I've always enjoyed about some video games, like even Call of Duty. There are situations where you
yeah,
lose your gun, and you have to in the campaign you have to
yeah, you
sneak
have to
around and
run
not get
or
caught. I
sneak.
like these
Yep.
small little things. That's why.
Well, the reason why
Uh,
I'm sorry.
that's why I've always enjoyed, like, I wouldn't say I fully enjoyed it, but it's something that I'm like, yeah, this is nice. I like the and I know it's met with some criticism. With the Spider-Man series, when you play as Miles or we play as Mary Jane, I didn't quite mind it. It was actually a nice break of the superhero-ness of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and you get to see the more realer version, much like how you see with much of these in comics where people say you can't patrol the streets flying through the sky. You can't know what's going on in the city if you're just flying through them. You get into the nitty gritty, into the dirty parts of the city, and there you go. You're playing as someone who's weak. You're playing as someone who really can't do anything because they're trying to get this information and they're trying to get out safely. So that's one thing I enjoyed about Spider-Man. Just a little break in the Spider-Man field, just to get you, just to move the plot and to give you good character progression. But that's just me. That's my take. I've always liked that stuff where, hey, we know you're used to this, but here's something that goes against the grain. That's why I like Doom Eternal a lot. With these, I forgot their names, dude. The one enemies with the shields that you can only attack them when they're attacking you. Damn. A lot of people didn't like them because it ruined the flow of Doom in general, where you always moving around and shooting. And some people, not a lot of, I'm saying it, just a few amount of people. But all I know is that I really enjoyed Doom Eternal. How it,
I think everybody could agree that every game that requires any form of combat, every time there's a shield enemy, you're just like, ugh, now I gotta do an extra move to them. Now I gotta be in their backside.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
slide. No, it's just a thing that everyone, no matter what, they'll be like, ugh, now I gotta add an extra thing. Like with the Arkham
Marauders,
games,
that's what they're called,
Spider-Man.
Marauders.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing though.
And then, the
Especially in
Red
higher
Shield people.
difficulties. In higher difficulties, it becomes a more skillful thing too. But I get it. It becomes tedious. It makes sense.
Well, to go back to what you were saying, the funny thing was you brought up like the whole Miles and Mary Jane thing. I hate them because they're just not fun going through them in a second playthrough. But then you kind of realize that the sightlines of those guards are fucking awful.
Oh,
like when I was going
yes.
through Tombstone's garage, I was knocking shit over for the hell of it. I was not going sneaky at all.
That's true.
I was just their sightlines are awful. They are practically blind. So I was just like pushing the limits of how badly
they're so, like, nearsighted. It's stupid.
I personally don't find them fun. I like that Miles Morales, at least the half sequel that it was, at least lowered it, and at least for the most part, you play as only Miles, which I kind of appreciated. So the reason why I asked you guys earlier, do you prefer your horror games to give you the option, or would you just not have fighting at all? Nitro Rad brought up this good point where he was reviewing the Silent Hill franchise, and he brought up the fact that he likes the idea that when you have a weapon, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed safe. Because you brought up the fact that like what Kenny said, that Ethan Winters going through Resident Evil 7, he would probably have a gun on him and he'll be like, well, I'm going to some spooky shit. I mean,
Yep.
Chris Redfield already fucked everything up for me, so I definitely got to do something about it. But then you get characters like Harry Mason and James Sutherland from Silent Hill 1 and 2. These are just like everyday ordinary people that just wandered into the spooky town of Silent Hill, and now they just kind of have to fight. But that doesn't mean they're like the best of fighters, you know, like they get a fucking tire iron. That doesn't mean that they're going to start like knocking people out like fucking Frank West who covered wars, you know. Like they're going to struggle a little bit, you know, and the combat is sort of like it shows it, you know what I'm saying? Like the combat isn't on as smooth on purpose. And with the old-fashioned Resident Evil games, and even this one, you don't have to kill the zombies. Especially, I don't know if you guys ever played the Resident Evil 1 remake. They introduced this mechanic called Crimson Heads.
Mm-hmm.
So how it worked in the original Resident Evil, if you killed the zombie, he would be gone. The hallway will be safe for sure. Nothing bad will happen. But in Resident Evil remake, they added this new mechanic called Crimson Heads. So if you kill a zombie and you don't burn their body or get a headshot off of it, they come back as Crimson Heads, and they don't die unless you get a headshot or you knock them down and then you burn their corpse down. So now you have to add that extra element into the game where it's like, okay, do I want to waste the bullets? Do I want to try to test my luck or get a headshot? Or do I want to waste the limited resources I have of gas in order to burn down the corpse? Because you have to determine like how often are you going to go back to that hallway. Because if you're your first time player, you're not going to understand the fucking map. You're going to go through that same hallway over and over and over again. But like players that have played the game multiple times can know, okay, I need to make sure that the zombies are not in this hallway because I'm going to come back here over and over again, and I don't want like 4 Crimson Heads just fucking my shit up.
Okay. I mean, I've never played any Resident Evil game, so I'm lost throughout this entire conversation you and Kenny are having. But that seems interesting about punishing you for your, like, hey, your actions have consequences. One thing a lot of people love in video games where you're like, hey, these small little details really do a lot.
And it actually does matter. I'm tired of game developers saying like actions have consequences, and it really doesn't amount to fucking anything.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've always hate that catch-all term is like, oh, because you have the choice of illusion doesn't mean you have consequences. That's fucking nothing. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
I think it's just expectations in general, because they will give you options in game, but it only really affects small things. If not, it affects the ending of the game. It doesn't affect every small things. Like, hey, I forgot to turn off this this faucet, right? So then when I come back to this place is full. The bathroom's flooded, right? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I guess people want that sort of expectations. I'm just being hyperbolistic here, but usually when it comes to your actions have choices, it usually leads all the way towards like the end of the game, where like the bigger stuff, like, hey, do I let this guy live or not, whatever, and then that's your actions have consequences type of thing. It's not that linear of a game, but I'm pretty.
I guess my main problem is that like when you make a choice, you deviate from the main story for like a little bit, but then it goes back to like the normal plot, like nothing happened.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm talking about. I just lose my shit. It's like, okay, cool, we went like an extra 10 seconds from a different direction, but the main story still why make the choice in the first place?
Yeah, why make me do that if it's going to be meaningless at the end of the end of it? Kind of like how people are upset with Cyberpunk.
Exactly. That was the game I was thinking of that like did that, because I was rewatching Chromecat's video and the guy was like bringing up that in the fucking trailer. They're like, oh my god, if you went and did the corporal mission with the lady, you would have gone something else. And the guy says, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. It really doesn't. The main story plays out exactly the same. The same fucking cutscene will play out exactly the same. And it's like, then what's the fucking point of choice at that moment? Like the writer clearly has a main story they want to tell. Why the fuck are you adding the superficiality of choice? But that's my little tangent out of the way.
I think more than anything, people just really want really want every small choice to affect their gameplay. I think one game that really did that very well, was The Witcher 3.
Black Ops 2 did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, but Black Ops 2, it always gave you, it was always a dichotomy. It always gave you two choices. There was always a dilemma. It's like, hey, you want this or you want that? But these are like really big choices. I'm talking about like, hey, you did a side quest and then you get to see later down the line this small little side quest did an impact to a certain person or a certain town.
So kind of like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where
Never played it.
where if you save people, then they'll remember and they'll be like, okay, we like you, sort of deal.
Well, I'm talking about Witcher 3, where even doing small little side quests, like people will talk to you about that, saying, "Hey, you did this" or whatever. Yeah, stuff like that. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. And also, it doesn't even have to mean that like every actions have consequences. It doesn't even have to be like a generic like dialogue choice. Like Bunny Hop Gaming made this really good example where it's like if you swing your sword in The Witcher 3, nothing happens. You just watch the animation over and over and over again. But if you fire your gun in Metal Gear Solid 5, you're wasting precious ammo, and then you have to use precious GP in order to buy more ammo. So that directly causes a consequence because you're wasting material
Right.
at that point. You know what I'm saying? So like not every choice has a consequence, but every action has a consequence.
I think with what was it? When it comes to certain games, like even with Dishonored, two small little things you did in the previous mission does affect the next mission. I'm not talking about like, hey, do I decide to kill people or not kill people? I'm talking about just small little things like, hey, or even in the first half of the mission, and then the second half of the mission get affected for whatever you did on the first half. It's it's nice, small little details, but I honestly don't care if someone says, "Oh, you get free to choose whatever, whatever, whatever." I'll play the game regardless. I'm not gonna complain because a developer says you have the free choice to do whatever, and then you don't have that choice in the end. I'm still gonna enjoy it. I'm still gonna enjoy every little bit of it. I just wouldn't really care. I'll enjoy it even more if there was more choices and if there's consequences to those choices. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna ruin my experience. You know?
That's true. I just don't like the false sense of it. I don't like being like talked down to like we're gonna pander to everyone by giving the superficial option of choice, but it really doesn't mean anything. Like like not every game needs to be an open world game. Like sometimes your game could just be very focused and get rid of all the bullshit, like busy work, and just make the game focus. And like with this big complaint with like the new Resident Evil game, everyone was complaining about like, oh, it's really short. I'm like, okay, is it replayable? That's the more important question. Like, go back to like any of the classic Resident Evil games. If you know what you're doing, you could beat those games in like 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
But the important thing is I rather have replayability in mind rather than overextending the game. And it's like, okay, you made the game like 60 hours long, but it's like 20 of those hours are fun, and then you stretch the game out for an extra 40 or 50, and you're just like not having fun, and then nobody finishes your game
I
at
think
that
it's
point.
also expectation as well. Expectations really like could ruin your own personal experience with something.
Right.
Oh yeah, especially if your price tag is exactly the same. That's what No Man's Sky had that problem where, like with the whole No Man's Sky debacle, it was an indie game that I knew was being made by 5 people. Now, was the mission statement and the game's like expectations themselves pretty ridiculous? Like, yeah, it was basically Star Citizen, but with a lot less people and a lot less money. But what was the problem? Well, Sony got involved. They marketed it. They made it a console exclusive. Well, that console exclusive because it was also released on PC, and they also released a collector's edition. And it's like if No Man's Sky came out with for $20 and it was said to be an alpha at launch day, I think that the reception would have been completely better. But the fact that the game was being pushed by Sony, by the fact that it had a $60 price tag and it had a fucking collector's edition, like people are gonna have way higher expectations at that point. But if the game came out and said, "Hey, this is a game with like 5 people, we're gonna release it as an alpha for $20 on Steam, and we promise you to keep making content," then I think the reception would have been better. But now, after all this time and years, the game is really good now because you know what? Unlike certain developers,
Anthem.
they could have just took it. That
BioWare.
and Bethesda, for example, like No Man's Sky just added a VR mode, and unlike Bethesda that charged you another $60 for a fucking game that was like what 5 years old at this point, and
Excuse
doesn't
me,
include the DLC.
excuse me, Todd Howard. He had to sell Skyrim 70,000 times.
Yes.
So
Of course,
he has to sell.
I was
it
more talking about like
70,000
Fallout
Oh
4,
no, I'm talking about Skyrim VR.
Skyrim VR, but like that's my point though, is that like this is a team that got shed on because they got to make the game come out, and with
But
such
I
a
mean,
big hype
look at
and
the
things
way
like,
the game was presented to us, and then look at the way the game came out to us.
I agree. I do agree that
It was more
the guy
egregious.
I forgot. I don't think the guy intentionally made the lie. I think that you could tell that the guy was kind of like awkward on stage. I know this is like really old news, but you could kind of like tell that this isn't a guy that is used to being like the public representation. He's a computer guy. Like, I know people like that. They could sit behind a computer all day, but when you put them in front of a crowded audience, like, they freak the fuck out, and they're like, you know, you see him, like, his body language is shows him being uncomfortable. But, you know, unlike Todd Howard, who could say 16 times the fucking detail and dynamic weather situations, and you're like, oh, Todd, you little liar. But, you know, he's confident with his lies. You know what I'm saying?
Look at Rainbow Six Siege. It was something very similar. Season 1 was really, really bad, and the player base dropped like crazy. And it wasn't until that people started actually like saying, "Hey, like the developer team, you really gotta get your stuff together," and they did. Yeah, and they did. And Siege is a pretty nice game. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying with like with No Man's Sky. Like, they could have just taken the money and moved on their way. They could have made another game, and they said, you know what? No. We're not going to do that. We are going to work on the game. And I found out like how this guy like took the negative backlash, because, you know, as you guys know, the backlash was so bad that the guy was getting like death threats and shit, right? Where he made this really smart system where he would get, you know, because like the internet is a fucking cesspool, especially when you're in some controversy or shit like that, where people are just like shit talking you and threatening you and blah, 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 blah. You know, he did this smart, like, analytical way of looking things. Like, so let's say he gets like an email, right? And the guy just says like all this horrible shit to him. He's like, fuck you, you know, you're awful, your parents never loved you, blah, 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 blah. You fucked up the spawn system. He would focus on the spawn issue in that little email and write it down in a Google, like in a fucking like in a graph or something, right? And he says like, okay, this guy's main issue is the spawn system. That doesn't work. Okay, we need to put that as priority one. Yeah. And it's, you know, I like that, because he's just like telling his team, look, don't look at the reception, don't go on Twitter, don't engage, don't say anything, just get the feedback and keep working. And guess what they did? They did a complete 180. Yeah.
Well, even with that situation, he knew what he needed in this game, anyways. He knew it wasn't even finished, so they just continued working the game until it was done. And this input was just another part of it. It was just another. What was it?
Yeah, but as you can imagine, like with a fucking small team, that's a little bit more personal. You know, you don't have like Bethesda fucking.
Yeah. You tweeted me. All right, I'm gonna laugh.
No, it's more like Bethesda's support team just said, "Oh, sorry about your canvas bag. We can't afford it. Good luck."
Yeah, for real.
But
like that was.
You can look at Among Us. It's only a group of 3 people, and they're working on now one of the most played games out there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about more like a catastrophe.
Yeah.
That's what
I mean, people still gave mad crap to the developers of Among Us, saying, "Hey, it's like the same thing, like over and over and over again." It's like, yeah, because that's what it is. They're in the middle of
like
making
an
the second
game. I mean, look at an arcade
game, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna cancel making the second game because the first game got really, really popular. So I'm just gonna, we're just gonna focus on this." So
yeah, and that's kind of cool because there's no extra price tag included in it. They're not like EA that's just gonna release the same game over and over again and then charge you like a full fucking product. And like I said, price tag set expectations. No Man's Sky was sold for $60
Yeah.
And so. How many times, like, you guys know what I'm talking about, like, developers will get shit on, and rather than just being like, okay, we fucked up, we're going to fix the game, they'll just be like, oh, the game did bad, so we have to kill the franchise, the IP is dead, that's the reason why it flopped. Like, no, the game flopped because you guys fucked up on the final product.
Yeah.
People would have liked your game if your game was actually good, and it was working, and it fucking, like exceeded expectations.
Yeah, I mean,
not shit it out.
I do have to commend, like, Cyberpunk 2077, even though the launch was a total disaster. I mean, absolute travesty. I still feel like them working on it instead of giving up and just eating the lawsuits is definitely better than just, the latter of the two.
Even though they promised 16 things, but they only delivered 8, like, they're only developing the game to, like, have, like, 12, right? I'm just throwing these numbers for hypotheticals to make it easier to understand. They promised these many things, it launched with this things, and then the final product is not going to have those 16 things. It's just going to have 12 things. So it's like, is it really worth it? A lot of those things
were like really, really ambitious. Like there was just very stuff that was too, like
very specific.
That's not feasible. It's not possible for every game style, every play style, everything, every choice that you have.
It's not possible now, but if they had more time, like a lot more focus on it, yeah.
Well, my thing is with that is that it's also determined of which word of mouth are you going off of. You know, with No Man's Sky, like okay, good example. They asked him like, okay, so is there going to be character creation? Like, kind of, not that much. But then the article comes out it's like No Man's Sky is going to have character customization so detailed and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just
because
like,
media
yo,
likes to blow up stuff.
to over exaggerate it. But then when it's CD Projekt Red telling you like, yeah, you're gonna be able to buy houses and properties and this and that, and then like months later they're still like, no, that's actually not what we meant. It was actually just gonna be one
Yeah,
thing
it
because
was
we have
more
a
of
particular
a
story, and it's like
move instead of
that's what you said,
Yeah.
not what we
I
said.
will say
Yeah.
though, people who got really really upset at what was it, at Cyberpunk, and were genuine about that, but can genuinely say they love vanilla Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. That's called being a hypocrite, and you gotta really check. You gotta put that away, because honestly, Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, amazing games as they are, they came out buggy. They came out really, really, really full of like bugs, crashes, whatever, and it was still a fun game. People still had fun with Cyberpunk, even though it was buggy. Albeit the bugs there are a little bit different than in the Fallout games, but same thing. It's the same shtick. You shouldn't really. If you've already been through this rodeo once before, what's the problem? Sure, this is why I don't really care about looking at games like, hey, they're gonna release this in the game or that in the game, or whatever. Just having these expectations really ruin anything in life in general. Just having expectations and having them just fall flat, and you getting disappointed and making you just bring all this negative emotion, these negative vibes. It just doesn't help out anyone. Just enjoy the game, just enjoy what it is, and just leave your expectations at the door, because if not, it's gonna be a bad time for everyone.
Plus, you should just be, surprised that they actually do something. I get where you're coming from, Marcos, because like when you get like super into detail and learn like every little detail about the game, you're gonna have like this ridiculous amount of like expectations. On granted, that's still a justifiable expectation if they put it out there. With the whole thing about like we're gonna promise you this part of the map in the game, but then when you go to the game, the map, that area doesn't exist, and you're like, what is it? Oh, we just didn't have enough time to put it in. And it's just like, then why the fuck did you advertise it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like going back to what I was saying, like it's more of a surprise when you're just like, because I think like Mudahar tweeted this where he's just like, it's more fun to go into a game and just be more surprised rather than going into a game with a checklist in mind and just expecting everything in that checklist.
Yep.
The one thing about it, just in general, like, this is just life advice as well that I was just given. When you just humble yourself and you just really, really leave expectations at the door, even when it comes to a relationship, leaving a lot of expectations at the door and communicating, it's one of the greatest things you can do to yourself mentally and to whoever's involved in this relationship, or even both casual and romantic. One thing that I truly enjoy is if I tell someone to do something and they really fail at it, I'm not going to expect them to succeed most of the time. If they can't do it, whatever, I don't care. Just having that expectation and having them not met just leaves this toxic thing in your mind that allows it to fester, and it's just so boring. It's so whatever. Why would you want that for yourself? I'll say it again, just play the game, have fun with it. I enjoyed the hell out of Skyrim, but then I realized like, hey, yeah, Skyrim was a pretty bad game overall, vanilla, but I could still enjoy it, even though it's like, it's still whatever. I could still enjoy Fallout New Vegas, even though it's buggy as hell. I could still enjoy it, even though it's the vanilla version. But it's just, I'm just having fun, dude. I'm just gonna enjoy it. Just
Isn't that what video games all about?
Just escape from reality mostly.
Like my boy Reggie says, if it's not fun, what's the point?
Right, that's true. That's true. But even if it is fun, like, more than anything, if it's replayable too. So like,
Gotcha. That's very true.
Have you guys heard of the that when it comes to companies like Tiger Direct that sold all their shops to go digital? Did you guys hear anything about like GameStop doing the exact same thing, thinking about going digital, pure digital, or no?
Bethesda Starfield is Xbox exclusive.
Oh, is it now?
They
I mean,
announced
I
it
figured.
Yeah,
today.
we had this discussion about
Wait,
Game Pass.
is it official or is this like we're just going off of
And
reports?
we're going off of, I mean, all I've been seeing is memes.
It's just
I've been
reports.
seeing memes,
Yeah, I've seen.
and now I'm reading an article saying Starfield will be exclusive to Xbox. Microsoft trying
And
their
PC.
hardest for holiday 2021 launch rumor. So
I
That
mean,
sounds
like
about right.
as frustrating that probably does sound for the PlayStation only fans out there. Do you really think that Microsoft is not going to just spend a bazillion dollars to get Bethesda
it's
under their
true,
belt and
but
not make an
you know,
exclusive?
here's what I don't understand. Like all the PlayStation, I'm sorry, I'm going to be very blunt with this. All the PlayStation ponies.
Oh,
They
man.
all like to call out that Xbox has no games. Well,
Exclusive
no, Xbox.
games.
Yeah, well, they say no games. They literally say it like that. Xbox has no games.
This is why you don't follow the topics on Twitter, because holy shit, it's like the most like vile diatribe, like way hot, like unnecessary takes I've ever seen. What's that? You like PlayStation? Well, there's a PlayStation fanboy like curb checking a fucking Xbox fan for no reason. I'm like,
for no reason.
what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, even if they're just praising the console, like, oh, you're an Xbox fan, get out of here. Like,
yeah,
but
it's like really,
this is
it's like a bit of a
so
yikes, you know.
my take on it. Yes, Xbox may have quote unquote bought bought Bethesda and all these other companies to make exclusive games. That was their whole point, was that they were trying to be more game focused rather than last
pulled a Disney.
generation. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah, you might have an established like base of studios, okay? But so did Sony. Yeah, they might have came out with less games, but it's not like all their studios were brand new. Like Xbox created, what was it, the Coalition? They created 343 Industries. They've created studios for their IPs. So it's like, in my opinion, Xbox and Sony are the same. But seeing this
course,
sort of
but
news it's kind of exciting because it gives people a reason to get onto the platform. You know, try out what the other platform has to offer. I'm not saying I'm solely an Xbox player, because I do have the PS5 and I have obviously my PC. But all I'm going to say is like, it just gives people a reason to appreciate Game Pass more, because it's going to be day and date, obviously, with Game Pass. And it gives people a reason to be on their new console that they spent $300 or $500 on.
Okay, here's my question about Starfield. And I don't care if it's exclusive or not. All I care about is one simple thing, because Bethesda does this a lot.
Okay.
What is their physics engine?
It's a new
It's
one.
gonna be the
No,
same.
it's a new one.
No. Are
Yes.
you sure? Because last time I read it was going to
No.
be the
Is it
same
still the
engine.
creation engine?
No, it's not the creation engine.
You sure? Because I looked it up and it says they're doing the creation engine.
For Starfield?
Yeah, I'm just checking it up right now. Creation engine, yes.
According to Reddit, which is from
Oh
2018.
yeah, let's go to Reddit, because
Yeah.
right
Hey,
here,
guys, I know that
Starfield's
Reddit
game engine will be a leap
Game engine.
forward, Bethesda says.
Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah.
Creation Kit 2.0.
Yeah, creation
boys.
engine with stickers on it. Whoop-de-doo.
Yo, I'm waiting for that Source Engine 2, man. That shit's gonna be busting.
That doesn't mean anything. It's probably going to be just creation engine, because even Bethesda said it before that they didn't want to make a new engine to start from the
Yes,
ground up.
but here's the thing. Now they have Microsoft backing them, which, if anybody knows anything about Microsoft,
They were developing the
and
game before
Xbox-
Microsoft came in.
yes, I know. But here's what I'm going to say. If anybody knows anything about Microsoft, their developers.
Bethesda engine is getting its largest upgrade before Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6. So it is going to be just an updated version.
So it's going to be just like COD, okay? Just like
Hell yeah.
just like it's been, for the past almost 20 years now.
I mean, to be fair though, Valve has even said that they want to make they want to make Source Engine 2 a thing, and they want all their future games whenever the fuck that will happen.
What games? What games? Explain
exactly,
to me
that's
what games.
Dota, my guy. It's called Dota.
It
Like,
says
don't
that the
you fucking-
studio will also maintain its commitment to to mod support. Both games Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 will launch on Game Pass thanks to Microsoft's recent acquisition of
Even
Howard's
though
company.
Microsoft, sure, they bought it, they're not gonna restart their game in general.
No,
because
you're
they're gonna
absolutely
work on a
right.
new physical
But
game.
they're also going to meet up with all the other studios, and they have input, and they can give tips, and people can throw tips to each other, because that's what their studios are. They're a big old family now.
Right. So with Fallout 76,
Assuming that the family gets along really well.
so since Fallout 76 used the exact same engine, the creation engine, but it was much like how Bethesda said it's a improved version of it because they worked on it. Many of the same glitches and broken parts and game mechanics that were in Morrowind, in Oblivion, in Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, those
Skyrim.
appeared in Skyrim was the same case as Oblivion and whatever, but those reappeared in Fallout 76 to the point where people who were tech savvy were able to hack into the game, into Fallout 76, where they can legit steal your entire inventory because guess what? It's the same engine. So people were able to take advantage of that.
Same bugs and everything.
So that's why I'm concerned about the creation engine.
Okay.
Which is funny because I remember Bethesda saying that in Fallout 76 was going to support mods, but the last time I looked it up, they just flat out said, no, mods are not allowed. Do not use mods in Fallout 76. Because, I mean, I don't know how would you use mods in a multiplayer-focused game like that, but all right, well, I guess they backed out on that.
Here's a quote from Todd Howard. From rendering to animation to pathing to procedural generation, I don't want to say everything, but it's a significant overhaul. It has taken us longer than we would have liked, but it's going to power everything we're doing with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. When people see the results, they'll hopefully be as happy as we are with that, with what's going on the screen, and also how we can go about making our games.
Well, actions speak louder than words, and so far, yeah.
But they haven't even listen. They haven't even showed gameplay of Starfield.
I'm talking about in the past.
I have
like they haven't showed gameplay of Elder Scrolls 6, and they haven't showed gameplay of Starfield. Reason being, who knows? Maybe they're just they want to be safe this time because of the way Fallout 76 was handled.
I don't mind giving them benefit of the doubt, but there's precedents already where they say the exact same thing except they word it differently in the past, and it's
Skyrim was gonna have 200 endings.
Yeah,
remember?
and it's still gonna lead the same thing. Listen,
I don't remember that.
Much like with politics, right? People say things and they don't meet those promises. It's the exact same garbage.
Yeah, because their entire shtick is to sell something to you, and then when you already buy or voted for them, they say, "Fuck you, I already won."
I'm reading a comment right now. Breaking news: Game in 2022 has better engine than game from 2006.
Yeah,
that's not what they are implying. They are implying that it is a larger improvement from the current engine than what they went from Morrowind to Oblivion engines. So they're saying it's going to be a larger leap forward than Morrowind to Oblivion, when they went from polygons to extra polygons.
Dude, I really like that.
16 times the detail.
200 endings.
Climb that mountain with your horse.
Keep pressing the jump button. You'll make it.
Yes.
You'll do it.
Yes. Keep walking side to side. And pressing Y.
Get fucking hit by a troll in VR and just fling yourself up to the fucking
stratosphere.
God,
that's my favorite.
No, that was a giant. That was a giant.
Yeah,
that was a giant. Yeah, you're right.
Giant. But that's always my favorite, running up to the trolls when you're low level and they just kind of like slingshot you into the moon. You know, like Dogecoin, how it was supposed to go. Rip.
More like underground. Am I right, fellas? It's going to start a new indie band.
Oh, man. Cryptocurrency.
One thing that I will give to, like, Bethesda, just in general, that at least the developers, a good amount of developers are competent, because, like, and they can make a good narrative sometimes, because it's honestly, like, they have a track record, but they also have a track record of being, you know what I mean?
I mean, like, can we agree that the story of 3 and 4 is not that good?
The story of 3 and 4, 4 I have, it's good. It's half and half for me, honestly.
Okay.
Because, like,
I don't know.
It's yeah, like hey, they took your kid, and then like what your kid does in the game is kind of dumb. Like excuse me, and how they go about it. I think they just rushed it. They just didn't. Whoever edited the story, whoever did everything, it's just it's kind of bleh. But that's just me being me, comparing it to New Vegas, how much of a masterpiece that was, because Obsidian knows exactly what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the same guys who made the story for Fallout 1 and 2.
Well, yeah. I mean,
wait, no, they had people. Obsidian hired people that was on the. Yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Their Obsidian is essentially Black Isle Studios 2.0.
Which is funny because even Fallout New Vegas had a lot of lore issues. So things that went against the continuity that Fallout 1, 2, and 3 already established. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, well, everything after New Vegas, honestly, really, they messed up some things like that are lore-wise, like how in Fallout 76, there shouldn't be any vertibirds because the Brotherhood of Steel haven't been out then. I think there were a couple of notes on some computers in some of the Brotherhood of Steel's archives saying that the first Brotherhood of Steel that opened up it happened this year, and Fallout 76 happened way before all that. So that's what I'm saying, like, lore-wise, even Obsidian that had the original Fallout members, developers in there, it's just, yeah.
It's sort of complicated because in the situation like with Fallout, because there was the Fallout Bible that was like the official canonical, like, this is everything you need to hear. Like, if you're wondering why there's no more talking death claws, it was because we killed them all.
Yeah.
They don't exist. They're dead.
Yeah.
They can't happen. But when a franchise is bought by another studio, as you guys know with Star Wars lately, the new holders of the rights could just say,
yeah, that's not
what is
canon anymore. Yeah,
canon.
kind of like how
History's written by the winners.
how
Type of thing.
the Halo franchise with 343 and Bungie, like when they transitioned from the Bungie studio to the 343, like they made all the TV shows, all that stuff, all canon, instead of just leaving it limited to the games. And letting the rest of the lore just kind of surround, let it surround. I love how you're just like money.
I mean,
Yeah,
why else,
pretty
right?
much, yeah.
But all I'm saying,
Yeah,
like, it
like-
just, like, it surrounds the games. So you have the lore around the games, which is optional. You can read it if you wanted to,
Right.
instead of force people to read it to understand the video game.
Yeah, I think more than anything, just making the world a bigger place is, I think, an option to make more bank. Like when you said the show was sort of canon as well.
Yeah, the show was canon. So, like,
Yeah.
when they did, like, the whole show for Locke before he was a Spartan, yeah, that's canon. That was his backstory before he became a Spartan. That's where it led up to him having to hunt the chief.
But here's the question, though: is the Steven Spielberg Halo movie canon?
No, because that was during the Bungie. That was during the Bungie era.
That was
Going to be
such a fun
such
time.
a sick movie too. Like,
Yeah, except Steven Spielberg just does not give a fuck about video games at all.
yeah, but he
Like,
didn't need
just
to. He could have just made the game. Like, made the movie.
the movie. Yeah, that came flat out of that. What came out of it? Fucking nothing.
It never released, right?
That would have no, it didn't.
No, it never came off the ground. Like
They
just
should have
announced
done it though. Like, it would have made so much money had they had done that during the Halo 3 era. You know how much?
Oh yeah, at the apex
yes,
of the franchise?
the peak, the pinnacle, the.
I don't know. I just thought it was just so funny. We're making a Halo movie, and here's Steven
Like,
Spielberg. Hi, I'm Steven
the
Spielberg.
perfect
I
part
don't really
was,
give a fuck about video
like,
games.
the ad campaign for Halo 3 led in
Oh, yeah,
perfectly into that sort of movie. They could have done that because Believe,
that Believe
the
ad
Believe
to this day
ads,
still
like
gives me
all of
chills.
them with the
It's-
freaking with the little mural, yeah, the
dioramas and
diorama
shit like
of like the whole war.
That's still like,
Oh.
like apex peak of video game
Such
commercials. Like,
a
as someone
large missed
who
opportunity.
does not give a fuck up. As someone who does not give a fuck about the Halo franchise as of yet, that commercial like makes me feel things that I didn't even know I give a fuck about. I was like, man, I thought like the Gears of War Tears for Fears, like the Gears of War, what's the song?
Yeah,
Mad
Mad
World
World.
song. Well, granted, that wasn't technically Tears for
It was
Fears.
a cover,
That
it was a
actually
cover.
Gary Jules. Yeah. It's probably funny because it's the more popular
I
cover,
know.
but I actually like the Tears
Me
for Fears
too.
version.
Me too.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I just thought that was just funny because Microsoft likes to announce shit and then they forget about it and then later they just go on their merry way and act like nothing happened. And then like months later, I looked at because I remember I was sitting one day at my job and I was thinking like, man, whatever happened to that Halo movie that they were talking about? And I looked it up and like, oh, Steven Spielberg doesn't really give a fuck. He doesn't really. He's one of those old farts that thinks that video games is an art. Blah 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 blah. And I was like, how the fuck did they even made him agree to do the fucking
The first
movie?
part of the movie in the first place. You know what I mean? Like the first 20 minutes that
Yeah.
he had made. I think it was excellently captured, and I think,
Oh wait, they actually filmed something?
yeah, they did, and then they released it on the internet, and this is the reason why people were upset, because it looked good.
They did? I swear I thought they never did. I always thought they never made like anything. They just
Oh
made the
no, there was a
announcement
Halo,
and then they went out of their way.
movie, sort of. Halo movie.
Steven Spielberg, not the anime. Okay,
No,
no, it was a TV series.
Yeah,
Correction,
TV series.
it was a TV series. Yes, yeah. The Wikipedia is fucking tiny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was,
Oh, wait,
it was a live
apparently-
action. It was live action.
For the show, right? Yeah.
Well, apparently they're making a Halo TV series for Paramount Plus. So, oh boy. Halo TV series.
oh yeah,
movies
that's
from
new. That's
Showtime.
new.
Okay, that's new. All right. But is Steven Spielberg going to be in it? That's what I want to know. I want him to know if he's a cameo. He's going to make a cameo.
I want a
Right
Steven
here.
Spielberg
This is
cameo,
it.
no director.
Halo,
just
live
him in
action.
the movie.
All trailers so far. Yeah, it's the first one right here. Unless this was like just an ad campaign for Halo 3 ODST, which, that's the case, and holy jeez.
Is that a fucking Bing video link you just sent me, my guy?
Wait,
It
what?
sure is a Bing link.
He sent me a Bing link. What the fuck?
Ew.
I guess this was just an ad campaign for ODSTs.
I'm assuming, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a commercial. Yeah, I'm looking. Okay,
It doesn't look like a commercial.
maybe it's a Rooster Teeth production.
Like, this looks good.
So weird looking.
Well, anyways, yeah.
What?
So yeah, when is Steven Spielberg gonna direct the next Red versus Blue? That's what I want to know.
I completely forgot about that series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen like bits and pieces of it. I've never seen like a full episode.
I've never
either.
been that interested in watching it anyways, so...
I mean, I never watched
the good old
Ruby
days
either,
of-
and apparently everyone goes crazy when I say that.
Yep.
Yeah,
I haven't watched
I
that.
have friends who absolutely love Ruby.
I'm just glad we're all
I
on
just
the
think-
same page.
Basically.
I will say though, I do miss the old fashioned days of making machinima with just a game engine in mind. You know, not before Source Filmmaker and like with Gmod and things like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Simpler times.
I do like that now when it comes to TF2. If you wanted to make like your own like short clips, it's so much easier now today to make the characters instead of making them talk, you seeing cut sound bits so it sounds all weird. Like there's programs out there that can make it's free and it's accessible by everyone, where you can put in whatever term or whatever word or sentence you want or paragraph, and they will say it perfectly in their voice actor's voice, and it'll come out nice, clean, and smooth. None of that cutness, whereas when someone says, one word, but then they splice it into 10 different parts because it sounds like this, if you mix it with other words. So that's one thing about TF2 movies, that they're still going on big, not big as before, but with the whole meme era of MLG and stuff, but it's still big out there. It's nice.
Yeah, TF2 is still gonna keep around as much as Valve kind of like doesn't really give a shit about their franchise, because their priorities right now are just Counter-Strike and Dota, which is a shame because there's so much about TF2 that they could work on, especially the elusive esport thing. I've been watching a lot of Funky TV, and he talks a lot about like how TF2 has so much potential to have a competitive scene, but they just, it's all community focused. And when people make the argument like, well, TF2 wasn't made to be competitive, and like, well, yeah, but neither was Smash Brothers, but yeah,
people
Yeah,
like doing certain things, and then they end up just going, hey, I'm just gonna do it like this because I want to, and if anyone else wants to join, they can go right at it.
I just wish that developers would acknowledge more of their competitive scene and be like, okay, cool, we're gonna promote it more, we're gonna drop a lump sum to the prize pool, things like that. Like it's funny because even Valve figured out a cool way with Dota is like if you buy their battle pass, 25% of the battle pass goes to the fucking to the winnings of a tournament, and I thought that was just
I didn't know
cool.
that.
Like
That's pretty cool.
Everybody wins at that point. Like you buy the product,
Yeah.
you support the community, and you get money out of it. Like that kills three birds with one stone.
Basically, that's nice. I didn't know about that. That's actually.
And you
nice
think
fact.
with TF2 being free to play and having all these cosmetics and fucking items and hats and shit, you think that they would, just put a small percentage of it. Unlike Blizzard, if you want to be like Blizzard and just fuck, oh my god, that whole like pet drama situation that happened a couple years back was pretty ridiculous.
With the was it in Warcraft?
Yeah,
Okay,
Warcraft.
yeah,
Long
yeah.
story short, they said like if you buy these pets, some of it would go to the tournament winnings, but instead they just said that we're just going to give a certain amount,
Yeah.
but then they were
Yeah.
like keeping the rest of
Yep.
it. But then when you look at the blog post, they say like in contribution, and it's like, well, which is it?
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah,
those
that was-
Yeah,
very
that's
well. It's nothing.
scummy.
I'm pretty sure nothing was written down. There was no contract. There was no promise. It was just like, hey, we're just gonna give them money. We're not gonna disclose.
Well, you wrote it in a blog post,
Right.
Kind of
I
like the
mean,
Halo,
blog
like the
post.
Halo, like Halo tournaments where you have to like. I think with Halo 5 Guardians, you would buy like the tournament packs or something like that, and all the money would go straight to their tournaments.
Yeah. But that's up to the publisher, and I think that it's great for the community and it builds a lot of attraction and things like
Absolutely.
that. But yeah.
One thing.
But I think we should go ahead.
Wait, well, before we close off, I
Mm-hmm.
honestly think that when it comes to just exclusives, I think they might be in the thing in the past in the future. Because honestly, more and more games are going to just be going on to PC anyways. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's
The finite version of playing games is going to be PC.
well, at least
I've
having
always said.
exclusives, because at least for the most part, PC still has a bunch of exclusives that Xbox and PlayStation will never get because, well,
Realistically, they would never
are like,
work.
indie developers are like, hey, I made a game. Here you go, boys. And then everyone's like, all right, cool. Let me play it out. And it's just it's just really, real simple game where all you got to do is just play a really linear game that they're never
Just
going to...
press space.
Basically, right? So, PC has all the exclusives. But I'm still going to play PlayStation because I'm a little cuck.
Yeah, I'll just keep my PlayStation for the 10 exclusives that comes out because now I can
Oh, they said that it's
proudly say that
25.
the PlayStation 5 right now is my Demon Souls machine. Just like its predecessor, it was the Bloodborne machine.
The PS5 is
Demon
my...
Souls?
No, I'm trying to take my time as much as possible because if I really beat Demon Souls, I have nothing for the PlayStation to play.
On. You're so dumb.
When's the last
I'm
time you
taking my
touched
time.
your PlayStation? Here's the real question.
Let me dust it off real quick.
Exactly. So,
It's okay. It's okay. All right, I still got the clown shoes that came with it.
yeah. I play it
Anyways.
for the exclusives. That's what I play it for mostly.
Me too. All right, I think we should go ahead and wrap, guys. Great episode. It's been hopefully for the audience out there that are listening, we greatly appreciate it. Sorry about the delays. We're trying our best to get these episodes out as quickly as possible, but life happens, things happen, but we'll try our best. If you haven't already, please join the Discord server. We would love to have you guys on board, and try to build this community because we definitely want to do more things for the community. Maybe we'll have some like Discord nights, maybe some movie things, maybe some game events. Who knows? We'll definitely want to build on top of this because that's what I want to do for this Discord server and for this community as well. So if you haven't yet, guys, make sure to follow us on Twitter, join our Discord server, and as you guys know, you can follow us here on YouTube. You can watch us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere that allows you to listen to a podcasting service. And I think that's pretty much all we have to say. Do you guys have anything else to say before we go?
I'm happy.
Me too. I'm really happy. I'm in a good mood today. How about you, Marcos?
Remember, just keep your expectations low and you'll never be disappointed.
That's true. That's what I tell every girl on the first date. Just keep your expectations as low as
Dating women.
possible. Wait, who said about dating women?
You said girls.
You're right, because I have high expectations only for the boys.
Ooh, okay.
Respect.
That's a nice save there. Pull the 180 there.
Restoration 100.
All right. Hell yeah, brother. Get my humanity back.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. All right, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. See you later, everyone. Stay safe out there and have a good one. See ya.
Join the Discord.
Yes.